So, I see you have this book that just or came out recently called "Nothing Larger Than These Stars,"
That's
and
right.
this is your first novel that you've like full length
It
novel.
is. Yes, it is my first published full-length novel. It's a science fiction mystery. It's a different sort of science fiction. It's heavy on the fiction and lighter on the science. So you're not going to find aliens. You're not going to find military. You're not going to find pew pew. You're going to find characters who are trying to do the best they can in extraordinary situations, who care about each other and who care about the place they live.
Hmm.
So from that perspective, it may not appeal to hard sci-fi readers. It's a different kind of science fiction. It should appeal to anybody who really likes a good story. But there's a whole list of a lot of folks who have been interested in kind of reclaiming the science fiction space for a more sort of peaceful, less kind of hyper aggressive, militaristic sort of approach. We've had a
Hmm.
lot of those kinds of, and they're great books. I would never shade John Scalzi. He is the man. But you know, there's room for everybody, and this is a little bit of a different kind of science fiction.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great thing. I mean, there's a room for everybody, and I agree with you that we do have a lot of like science fiction right now is very science fiction, and so having something that's a little lighter, I think, is a great. That's
Yep.
awesome. Where did the idea for this come? Where was the kind of like, how long did it take you? Like all those kind of details about this story.
Yeah. Well, I started, actually, I just got it into my head that it was time to go back to the thing that I had wanted to do all my life that I had never gotten around to doing. And so in 2018, I decided to jump in to NaNoWriMo, and I had 4 or 5 ideas. My work usually starts with a scene that presents itself in my head. And so
Mhm.
I'll write down that scene. I won't necessarily know anything about the scene other than the characters that are in it and whatever happens between them in the scene. I had a selection of different scenes. And so for my NaNoWriMo attempt, I picked this one scene that oddly enough, that I felt like I was the least attached to. And so it wouldn't matter if I screwed it up.
Mhm.
Um, and started with that and started writing. And I didn't win NaNoWriMo that year, but I got 35,000 words into the novel. And then I finished it the next year. I finished it in May of 2019. And then the edits and the rewrites began.
Mhm.
Um, so I knew already that there were parts of it that didn't work, didn't feel like they worked. And I spent a lot, and it was insanely long. It was 150,000 words long, which is too
Yeah.
much. And I put a lot of effort into streamlining things, making sure things felt like they were moving the story forward, that we were really providing stuff that was of interest and of value to the reader. Got feedback from critique partners and beta readers and all that kind of good stuff. And uh, did a lot of edits on it. Felt like I was going to query it. Had always planned to query it to traditional publishing to agents. And started on the query rounds in it, and then the pandemic hit. And there was a pandemic in the book,
Mhm.
which one of the agents that talked to me, who, and I've got some great feedback from agents. Agents have
Yeah.
been super helpful people in this journey, even though I'm an indie author now and self-published. But one of the agents that I spoke with said, "You probably don't want to do this after what we've just experienced, and let me just put it to you this way, there are a whole lot of ways to kill a lot of people effectively that
Yeah.
don't involve a pandemic."
Yeah.
So I went back and took the whole pandemic part out, and that's when I realized that the whole approach to that was problematic. So that was another rewrite. A couple years later, I'm still querying it. I'm getting different kind of responses, yes, no, yes, no. And to a certain extent, the feedback that I was getting was, this is a great story. You're a great storyteller. You know how to write. The publishing market is not in this place right now.
Yeah.
And you have two choices. You can either put it away and wait for publishing to get back to that place, and it will, but we don't know when, or you can indie publish it. And the way another agent friend of mine put it was, there may not be a publisher for this right now, but there are always going to be readers for this kind of book.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to indie publish it. And of course, I had to take it through one more round of querying, saying, okay, I'm going to take this through one more time, I'm going to get feedback. Nobody's going to be interested, and that's going to, and of course, I got like 3 full requests out of that round.
Yeah.
So, but I had already decided to go ahead and indie publish. And so I have. And
Yeah.
that's how I got here. It took a while.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it sounds like you had a pretty good experience then with querying,
I did.
and you found all that um very useful
Hmm.
information then.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of it has to do with how you go about it. Instead of just kind of scattershotting agents with written queries and, on Query Manager and hitting them up through, their standard process, uh, I've made it a point to attend conferences, in particular the Atlanta Writers Conference, but there are lots of other good writing conferences around the country that will do this, that enable you to actually sit down and talk to an agent when you pitch them.
Yeah.
So in those instances, you're sitting there in front of them. They've already seen your query letter, so they know what you're pitching to them. You have 10 or 15 minutes to actually talk to the agent. And it was super good for feedback. And, people get to know you and they understand where you're coming from. And you're not just another, name in this giant slush pile. So
Mhm.
from that perspective, it was super helpful. And I got to know a lot of these folks individually, both agents and editors at major publishing houses who I'm still in touch with today. And yeah, that's really making the individual personal connection with them is really the way that you get the best feedback from those folks on the trad pub journey.
Yeah.
So, and taking advantage of things like the mixer, the cocktail hour. I can't tell you how many people said that, oh, I'm not going to that. That's stupid. Well, I went and sat down next to an agent who talked to me about the book that I wasn't querying for half an hour.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that it in person is always better. And
mm,
if you can, if you can meet the people, and again, like you said, it's like otherwise you just kind of end up like another name on the pile and they might get to you. And I find it fascinating you had such a good experience, because I've talked to a lot of people who have not had such a good experience. And I think, to your point, I think, yeah, if you can get those in-person
hmm,
interactions, you
yeah,
do have a better experience for sure.
yeah. And I've had, relatively negative experiences with agents, like the one who I was allegedly taking a class from, who, when I asked, can I query you? And she said yes. And then I sent her the query and got a rejection within 24 hours. So,
Wow.
like, if you don't want to see it, just say you don't want to see it.
Yeah.
But, I've had those, but far and away, they have been positive. And I think a lot of it comes from maintaining an awareness that agents are people
Hmm.
and that they want to like your book. They really want to.
Hmm.
There are a lot of people who treat them like they're the gatekeepers or the enemy or something,
Yeah.
and that's not really who they are. I mean, yeah, there's some stinker agents out there, but most of them are good people trying to do the best they can, and they really do want to help you and they want you to succeed.
Yeah.